Good afternoon, everyone. In our last video, we have studied about gametogenesis, in which you have learned that how the sperms are produced. Okay, specifically, we have learned about spermatogenesis. In our today's video, we will be learning about oogenesis. Oogenesis is the process of formation of mature female gamete, that is egg or ovum, in the follicle of ovary. Okay, that is what? That is called oogenesis. The production of eggs in females begin before birth, that is during the embryonic stage, but is completed only after fertilization. It takes place in ovaries, and the germinal epithelium of ovary divides mitotically, means equational division takes place to produce millions of gamete mother cells, which are called oogonia. Singular is oogonium and plural is oogonia. No oogonia are formed or added after the birth. Okay, now oogonia enters into meiosis 1. Meiosis is the reductional division which occurs in two stages, that is meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So oogonia enters in meiosis 1. It proceeds prophase 1, gets suspended and forms the primary oocyte during the puberty age. The primary oocyte restarts its first meiotic division. Now we will study it in complete detail. Oogenesis takes place by three stages as follows. The first stage is the multiplicative phase, second is the growth phase, and the third one is the maturation phase. Let us study all these phases one by one in detail. The first phase is the multiplication phase. Cells of germinal epithelium undergo mitotic division, producing undifferentiated germ cells called the oogonia or egg mother cell within each fetal ovary. These cells start division and enter the prophase 1 of meiotic division and get temporarily arrested at this stage, which are known as primary oocytes. Okay, so in the diagram you can see oogonia. Oogonium undergoes mitosis and produces large number of oogonia. Okay, then this oogonia or egg mother cell start division and enters in the meiosis 1, that is prophase 1 of the meiotic division, and there the growth gets temporarily arrested, and that is called the primary. It will result in formation of primary oocytes. Okay. Then the second phase is the growth phase. Each primary oocyte then gets surrounded by a single layer of granulosa. Okay, granulosa cells. Granulosa cells are the follicular cells, and it is these cells are the somatic cell that is closely associated with the developing female gamete, that is egg in the ovary of the mammals. Okay, so one of the diploid oogonia undergoes growth, increasing in cytoplasm and accumulation of yolk, and transform to large oogonia cells called the primary oocyte. This we have already learned. Other oogonia forms a single layered follicular epithelium which is called the primary follicle. primary follicle surrounded by many granulosa cell and produces the secondary follicle. Secondary follicle is characterized by fluid filled antrum cavity, okay, antral cavity which is called antrum, and then when the antrum is produced it is called the tertiary follicle. Tertiary follicle is also called the Graafian follicle. In the maturation phase, fully grown primary oocyte undergoes meiotic 1 division, results in the formation of 2 unequal sized haploid cells, the large secondary oocyte and a small polar body or polocyte. The secondary oocyte undergoes the second meiotic division to form a large oocyte or ovum and a small second polar body. Secondary oocyte forms new membrane which is called the zona pellucida, okay, and it is called the follicle which is developed is called the Graafian follicle. The first polar body also undergoes the equal division to produce 2 cells. Thus, during oogenesis, 4 cells are produced. Among them, 1 is functional oocyte, that is ovum, and the 3 are non-functional polar bodies. The oocyte with very little change becomes the ovum. Children, let me explain you with this diagram. The cells of the primary germ cells in the embryo undergoes differentiation and the oogonium is produced. Okay, now this oogonium will undergo mitotic division, which is equational division, and as a result the number of oogonium will increase. So many oogonia will be formed. Okay, now this oogonia undergoes mitosis and differentiation and produces the primary oocyte, right, and this primary oocyte then undergoes the first meiotic division, right, and at the prophase 1 the mitotic division is temporarily arrested, okay, then at the completion of the meiosis 1 and at the onset of the meiosis 2 the primary oocyte will divide and it will produce the first polar body and the secondary oocyte, right. Further, there will be development of the secondary oocyte. The secondary oocyte forms a new membrane called the zona pellucida around it and it starts the second meiotic division, but it remains suspended in metaphase 2 till the sperms enter it, right, and then this Graafian follicle ruptures to release the secondary oocyte from the ovary. The release of the secondary oocyte from the ovary is called the ovulation, right. So secondary oocyte will then get transformed into ovum, right. This is ovum. Let me explain you more in detail by using this flow chart. Once again, it is the process of formation of mature female gamete, which is haploid, and the gamete is called ovum, from the diploid oogonia cells in the ovary. This is called oogenesis, and the production of the eggs in female begins before birth, that is during the embryonic development stage, but it is completed only after fertilization. Various phases are there which we have already discussed, that is multiplication phase, growth phase, maturation phase, right. Now let us see what happens in the multiplication phase. The cells of the germinal epithelium, it undergoes mitotic division, producing the undifferentiated germ cells which are called oogonia, or the egg mother cell or the gamete mother cells within the ovary of the fetus. Then the cells, these cells, that is oogonia, they start division and enters in prophase 1 of meiosis 1 and get temporarily arrested at this stage, right? So oogonia will undergo prophase 1 and it will result in formation of primary oocyte, right? Now the growth phase starts. Each primary oocyte will get surrounded by a single layer of granulosa cells. Granulosa cells, as I told you, they are also called follicular cells. So granulosa cell is a somatic cell that is closely associated with the development of female gamete in the ovary of the mammals. So primary oocyte will get surrounded by a single layer of granulosa cell and that is called the primary follicle. About 2 million of these follicles exist in females before birth. A large number of these follicles, they degenerate during the phase from birth to the puberty. Therefore, at the puberty, only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary. The primary follicles get surrounded by more layers of granulosa cells and a new theca to form the secondary follicles. Now, the maturation phase, that is the third phase, starts. During this phase, the secondary follicle transforms into the tertiary follicle, and these are characterized by the fluid filled cavity called the antrum. Okay, and the follicle gets transformed into the tertiary follicles, as I said, during the maturation phase. And in the tertiary follicle, there is fluid filled cavity which is called antrum. The theca layer is organized into the inner theca called interna and the outer theca which is called externa. The primary oocyte within this tertiary follicle grows in size. The fully grown primary oocyte completes its first meiotic division, producing 2 daughter nuclei, in which larger haploid cell is called the secondary oocyte and the tiny one is called the first polar body, as you can see in this diagram. Okay, primary oocyte will complete its meiosis 1 and it will result in formation of the secondary oocyte, which is large in size, and the small first polar body. Okay. The secondary oocyte retains the bulk of nutrient rich cytoplasm of primary oocyte. The tertiary follicle further changes into the mature follicle or the Graafian follicle. The secondary oocyte forms a new membrane which is called zona pellucida around it and starts its second meiotic division, but remains suspended into the metaphase 2 till the sperm enters it. At this stage, the Graafian follicle ruptures and releases the ovum. Okay, releases the secondary oocyte from the ovary. This release of secondary oocyte from the ovary is known as ovulation. Here you can see again this diagram shows the development of the follicles where the primary oocytes are formed. Primary oocytes will get surrounded by the granulosa layer and it will result in formation of the primary follicle. This is primary follicle. Okay, then there will be development of the secondary follicles in the secondary follicles. Okay, this is secondary follicle. This is tertiary follicle. Here in the tertiary follicle, there will be completion of the meiosis 1 of the primary oocyte, and it will result in formation of secondary oocyte. Okay, now the Graafian follicle will be produced. Tertiary follicle will further change, it will undergo changes and it will produce the Graafian follicle or the mature follicle, and the secondary oocyte forms a zona pellucida layer around it, and it completes its meiosis 2. Okay, and it enters in the meiosis 2 and it remains suspended in metaphase 2 till the sperms enters in it. Okay, and at this phase only there will be rupture of the mature follicle or the Graafian follicle, and the egg will be released. This process of release of ovum from the Graafian follicle is known as ovulation. Okay, then the parts of the follicle, the ruptured follicle parts will get converted into corpus luteum, and there will be degeneration of the corpus luteum later. This is the diagram of the mature follicle, where you can see here the ovum is present. Okay, you can see this is oocyte, secondary oocyte. This is antrum, the fluid filled cavity. GC is the layer, TF is also the layer. GC is the stratum granulosum and TF is theca folliculi. Moving to the next topic, that is structure of human follicle. The structure of human female ovum. Okay, here the ovum is rounded in structure. It is non-motile cell, it cannot move on its own. In humans, the ovum is yolk free, that is alecithal. It has abundant cytoplasm called the ooplasm, having a large nucleus termed as germinal vesicle with a prominent nucleolus at the center. So children, you can see there are follicular cells of corona radiata. Okay, then zona pellucida layer is there. After that, zona pellucida layer. Then perivitelline space is there, and inner to it there is the plasma membrane, which is called vitelline membrane. And inside this, cytoplasm is there, which is called the ooplasm. It has the large nucleus. Okay, and within the nucleus there is, it has large nucleus. This is a nucleus, and within the nucleus there is large or prominent nucleolus at the center. So this is the structure of human female ovum. That is all for today. In our next video, we will be learning about the menstrual cycle. Thank you.